For most people, life in the US sucks. From skyrocketing rent and mortgage prices, to the average citizen paying almost twice as much as any other first world country for healthcare, to suburban sprawl so bad, you almost need to own a car to survive. And while some snide commenters may say, oh, if you don't like it here, try living in insert other country, a lot of the other countries that you would define as worse tend to be that way because they were direct targets of US military action, US-backed coups, or US economic sanctions, which strangle a country's ability to develop. And on top of that, even the things you would fear living in these countries are things that also happen in the US, including slavery, mass poverty, food insecurity, state violence, and violent crime. So while the US has the largest economy in the world, it seems like it's terrible with spending its money. It's kind of like the guy who owns a sports car but can't afford their rent. Except this time, the guy's the US government, the rent is your well-being, and the sports car is an ungodly mix of fighter jets and ballistic missiles. Since this obviously isn't beneficial for the average Joe, what could possibly be a solution to all these problems? Today, we're going to be talking about library economies, and how the Empire of Aeternia, our developing micronation, can use its tenants to develop a modern economy while also taking care of its citizens.
I am the Emperor AP, and from my throne room RV, I will make Aeternia the greatest micronation to ever exist. This quest has made us many enemies, those who would wipe us off the map given the chance. Yet I must stop at nothing to build my people a home. Lucky for me, I'm not doing it alone. Others have seen the value of our great empire, and what it can mean for those who have been abandoned by their mother countries. So no matter what stands in our way, no matter how tough things get, we will always have a reason to fight.
When I was a kid, I used to love to go to the library. I enjoyed reading some, but mainly what I got out of the library had little to nothing to do with books at all. It was a place where I could use the internet when we didn't have it at home, a place where we could rent DVDs and VHS tapes when we couldn't afford to go to Blockbuster. And most of all, they always had really cool classes. In fact, one of my favorite memories from the library was the time that an astronomy club was having a meeting there. I got to use super expensive telescopes, learn from experienced astronomers, and best of all, experience the wonder of myself and other strangers seeing heavenly bodies hundreds of millions of miles away for the first time. Now, what does any of this have to do with the economy? Well, just like we talked about, there are a lot of problems in the US that the average person experiences on a daily basis. And most of those hardships revolve around the problem of access. In economics, when people are restricted from accessing something because there isn't enough of it to go around, they call it scarcity. Scarcity is that thing that makes some items very expensive. Because if there's only a little bit to go around and everybody wants it, the price to access that item is incredibly high. However, modern societies have proved through industrialization and mass production that for most things we produce way more than we need. For example, 10% of all perishable groceries in the US get thrown away before they can ever be sold off the shelf. In fact, there are tons of businesses in the US that's whole design is based around the fact that we produce more than we need. Closeout stores buy things from other retailers that they can't sell in bulk and then resell them at a discount to the individual consumer. While recycling centers and dumps make all their money from taking all of our discarded items that we can't reasonably or safely use. On the other side of scarcity is artificial scarcity, where things are cheap to make and manufacture, but high in demand, so producers jack up the price, making it incredibly hard to access. This is the case for things like the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries. For expensive medications, treatments, and tests, you need to find some way to be able to afford them on the off chance that you need them. So you purchase health insurance, which costs you heavily every month, to be able to get some sort of access to healthcare, but even then your health insurance doesn't cover all of your costs. This means that the US has a total of over $88 billion in medical debt, and plenty of people in the US still don't have proper access to healthcare. This in comparison to most other countries that either provide subsidized or free healthcare to their citizens and have little to no medical debt. In all of these cases, we can see that there are major inefficiencies in the way that our economy works. These inefficiencies are a direct result of the scarcity culture that we have, where the purpose of someone's participation in our economy is for them to be hoarding resources so that others depend on them for access to those resources. If you listen to US politicians, they'll say that nothing can be done about these problems. And if the overall goal of our economy is for us to constantly increase the value of goods and services, they may be right. But in realizing that, we may have found that the answer is in doing the opposite. Instead of focusing on the goal of increasing wealth and value, the goal of our economy and our societies should be about taking care of our populations as best as possible. That being the case, we should focus on improving the base quality of life for all citizens. That way each has the best possible chance to be happy, productive members of our society. Okay, but how do we do that? It starts by noticing where a lot of those problem areas in our current economy are. These are places where supply outpaces the demand, yet profit on average maintains the supply. Usually these places, like with food, medication, utilities, and housing, are all fundamental needs. So the problem lies in the fact that everybody has demand for these goods and services, yet in order for them to be profitable and therefore worth doing in our current economy, they have to be made in such excess that they are still cheap to produce. So cheap that they still make a lot of extra money for the seller, despite the fact that they have to be sold cheaply enough to be bought by the average consumer. This means that for things that everyone requires a regular set amount of, there is a ton of extra work and value that is lost in its distribution. So a great place to start making some improvements is to minimize the amount that we spend on producing things that everyone needs. This is normally done by letting the government run these industries. And no nationalization has its own set of problems. In terms of industries like housing and healthcare, in the modern era, it has a track record of outperforming other nations whose industries aren't nationalized in terms of cost and access. And since the goal of our economy is to best take care of its citizens, savings for the government and widespread access for the people means that we can focus our efforts on larger improvements faster. So now that we know what the problems are, and we know what good solutions look like, what sort of system solves these problems and provides adequate solutions? Well, dear audience, it's time to go back to the library and talk about library economies. Just like at your local public library, a library economy is all about providing cheap or free access to high-quality goods, services, and information. This is accomplished through the use of what's called a library of things. These would be spaces where you could go to borrow items that aren't used frequently, but would be very expensive to rent or purchase privately. For example, things like power tools, sports equipment, event spaces, construction vehicles, medical equipment, and much more. Great! So how does this lower the price of medications, make housing more affordable, or improve working conditions? A library economy's main strength is in shifting our focus away from mass manufacturing and disposable commodities and toward satisfying local demand and maintaining quality resources. So right now, if you want to throw a party, you buy a cake, buy decorations, rent a space, hire entertainment, and purchase presents, only to realize that you've gone way over budget for one night of fun. In a library economy, just a quick stop to the library and you could reserve an event space. Even rent your entertainment for the night. And while you're there, you could rent some equipment to make a cake. Or how about some equipment to make your own unique custom presents? In that scenario, you may not spend any money at all, unless you don't feel confident in your baking skills or you want to hire outside entertainment. But even then, the party is still way cheaper than before. And that's just for one event on one night. Imagine the social and financial impact this could have over a person's entire life. Instead of having to buy our way into special events, celebrations, business opportunities, and home appliances, we instead are providing opportunity and access for free. Limiting the amount we produce also has the effect of not requiring as much labor per industry. And since these industries would be subsidized by the government for providing items to libraries as well as for private sale, it would encourage the manufacture of long-lasting, repairable goods, which best suit the library. This means that many industries could reduce their hours as a benefit to attract talented employees. This reduced time spent at work means people get to spend more time with their families and building their dreams, which make for more productive and economically secure communities. Things like the revitalization of product repair industries, the reduction in manufacturing-based pollutions, the encouragement of lifelong education, and the promotion of community engagement. Now, none of these ideas are particularly new, but we're not just doing economics research for fun. We are trying to develop the Empire of Aeternia. And in doing that, we have to think about not only what ideas are best in theory, but what practices are going to have the most effect on our people right now, as well as in the long term. While the imperial economy won't be limited to only libraries, incorporating them as our primary means of development gives us some significant advantages. First, as a small nation, we need to acquire more resources to improve our overall economic value, as well as to empower each one of our citizens. While most nations have citizens with skills and resources that they attempt to harvest for value, instead our citizens can focus just on honing their skills while we take care of the resource aspects. This also means we have something of value to offer the wider community as an incentive to become a part of our nation. For example, a US citizen might struggle to pay rent, find food, repair their belongings, or invest in their creative endeavors. But with the tools the library provides, they can take some of the burden off of themselves for finding these things, while also enriching the imperial economy with new ideas, skills, and goods. The fact is, in the US, everyone not living in luxury is looking for help in one way or another. Some might even scoff and tell you to work harder, struggle harder, and sacrifice more. While the solution is just to help solve people's problems in the first place. In developing the imperial library economy, we aren't just offering people items. We're offering a supportive community to grow in. Looking into the future is great, but what are we doing to make that happen now? Well, it all starts with Vitae. Our capital territory of Vitae is slow growing, but if you follow us, you know we just installed our driveway, which means its development is speeding up a lot faster this year. Once we can get a reliable and safe means of storage there, we'll start to experiment with a list of items to be able to be borrowed for free by local Aeternian citizens. But we only have a few local citizens, so does everyone else just not get access to our library? Well, we have a solution in the works already. See, for years now, the Empire of Aeternia has been developing the prestige system, in which people from all over the world can get a license and participate in our community in unique ways. Most recently, for those registered, we have released our first quest, a challenge we posed to the community in exchange for a reward. The first quest was issued in January. Its goal was to design a cultural game for the Empire, and we had great results. We got great ideas from it, and in return we are promoting and celebrating these creative members of our community. As we keep going, we can find new ways to incorporate people into our community who otherwise wouldn't have been, and allow those people access to digital resources through our quests. This way, the Empire still gets access to the amazing talents of the greater imperial community, while also providing benefits to those supporters' lives. With this two-pronged approach, we hope to connect with both our local and international communities, in the hopes that in the future we can combine them into one large imperial economy. And while we're on this quest to grow the imperial economy, we need your help. If you enjoy videos like this, consider supporting us over on Patreon. As a patron, you get early access to our content, as well as special perks in our Discord community. As always, thank you so much to our patron Ellie Mayer for supporting us at the Innovator tier, and Chad Cook and Eric24 for supporting us at the Champion tier. You guys help us make things happen every day here. Aeternia forever!